we're recording.
Thank you, and welcome to the Capital Subcommittee of December 5th. We have a new member this time. I don't think you were on last time, Sarah. So
No.
Sarah Mogtatar.
Mogtater, yeah.
I say it again.
Just don't say the H. Mogtater.
Mogtatar. Okay, great. Thank
The
you.
GH is the Israeli, sound.
Yeah. Okay. Sarah Mogtatar. And I think we're going to start with the minutes, which we have a number of minutes to approve, and I've actually read them, so I will move them. But do we need to move them one at a time? Mariah, do you think so? Or
I'm sorry, I was helping a child who needed help. I didn't hear what we were doing.
okay, well, what I was saying is, I think we're going to move the minutes, and I wasn't clear. The August meeting, just you and I were at. So, but I think I'll just let's move the August meeting first. We'll vote that and then the other two together, or maybe I'll just do each one separately. Okay, I move the August 22nd meeting for the minutes. And so,
I'll
Mariah?
second it.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. I'll call the
Who's
vote.
on this committee now? I'm sorry.
So Suzanne, you're going to find out right now.
Oh, okay, that's true. Right. Okay.
I think I'm abstaining on this one because I wasn't there.
Sarah?
I'll abstain.
Okay, and Mariah?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Now I'll do the September 12th meeting, the Capitol. I think that Suzanne was on that meeting.
Was
No?
that? I don't know. What's it saying? I don't think so.
I just read it, but I didn't read who was there then. There was the August one that I didn't know about.
You were in attendance, Suzanne, on September 12th, yes.
I was? Okay, good.
Okay, so I'll move it, and who would like to second?
I'll second it then.
Great. And Mariah,
Yes.
Sarah,
Abstain.
and Suzanne,
Yes.
and I vote yes. And the last set of minutes was from September 12th. And I'll move it.
Oh. I thought we just did that.
We just did September 12th. We're doing July 11th, I think.
I apologize. I thought I started, okay, July 11th. I guess this is Mariah and me. This is the one that's the two of us.
Okay.
then-
I'll second it then.
Okay. And Sarah,
Abstain.
Suzanne,
Abstain.
and Mariah,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay. So we haven't met since September, partially because people were really busy getting school together, mostly because people were really busy getting school together and needed to have the time to do that. And there weren't any pressing issues at the time. So I'd like to catch us up on all the things that have happened. And we have that on the agenda. So why don't we start with Clark Road relocation plan? And I think that's Susan that's gonna take that one.
Yeah. So we have been working all fall to try to come up with a game plan for who's going to go where, trying to consider locations where people can stay as potentially forever homes. Also knowing that we have, like the Pierce Building project that is underway, and in a few years there'll be capacity for some programming there that isn't available right now. So we kind of kept our eye on, where can people go that may be housed at Pierce in the long run for the time being. So we also looked at the work that people are doing, and those that need to be in close proximity to like elementary schools.
Can I
Yes.
interrupt you for just 1 second? So there are two aspects to vacating Clark Road. And the one that Susan's talking about is the staff aspect that's there at Clark Road, for those who may not know. The second aspect is where are the BEAT programs going? So
Yes.
why don't you go ahead with the where staff is going?
Yeah. So So we tried to look at, well, and BEEP will open up classrooms in Pierce also. So we did do some thinking about, where in the meantime, we can house some of the classrooms and or offices as we're contemplating, what makes most sense for us right now. So for the most part, we have a tentative game plan for BEEP. Well, we actually have a game plan for BEEP. The classrooms that are moving out of BEEP, one is going to go to Heath and one is going to go to Driscoll. And then there's a small classroom that has about 5 students in it right now that will be broken up. And so therefore we will not need to have a separate classroom for that 3rd classroom that's in Clark Road right now. So we have space for the BEEP program for next year. And skipping forward also, we renewed the leases for Beacon and for Putterham. So those are also BEEP locations. And I guess, is it the Lynch building? We also have some, is it Lynch or? Yeah. So we have a home for our entire BEEP program, kind of established for the upcoming year. So we all feel good about that. And then in terms of staff, we have broken people out again by kind of function, trying to keep departments together so that they're able to, collaborate and also stay put if possible. So we have the Baldwin School, which is going to be used as one and a primary location for many of the staff members. And so the folks that are going to be moving over there would be the 2 Office of Administration and Finance offices, so food services and operations will move over there. And then some of our curriculum folks will move over there as well. Some of the curriculum folks will also move over and have offices at the high school. Some will have offices at Driscoll. Some will have offices at Ridley, depending on, but we have not had those conversations with all staff members, so I don't want to name that. But just to say that I've worked with the principals and we all feel comfortable that we can accommodate all staff and programming that's at Clark Road now within the schools that we have and or Baldwin. So I thought you'd want an update on that. Also, of course, Charlie, I don't know if he's here.
He is.
Okay,
He
so
is,
he can
and
give us an
Sarah is
update
too.
on the renovation work that's being done over at Baldwin. So maybe we could pass on to that unless anybody has any questions about the Clark Road relocation plan. Again, I want to talk to staff before I say anything in too much detail publicly. I don't think it's good to have staff hear about it through a public forum.
I think that's a good idea. Mariah?
Thanks. Susan, just to confirm what you said, just to make sure I heard you right. There are currently 3 classrooms at Clark Road, 2 inclusion classrooms and 1 partner RISE classroom for students, and 1 classroom's going to Heath, you
Heath.
said, and 1 is
Heath.
going to Driscoll.
Correct.
And the Heath one will continue as an inclusion classroom, but without the sub-separate classroom. And then the other classroom will go to Driscoll and join with the sub-separate classroom that is there. So that really we only need 2 classrooms instead of 3 because it's partnering with the existing classroom at Driscoll. Okay,
Yep.
I just wanted to make sure I understood that
Yep.
accurately. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they may need a breakout space or something like that, but there is that kind of space right now for them at Driscoll if that's needed.
They've been given a couple of breakout spaces at Driscoll for those purposes for PT and some other services.
Is there anything else you want to add, Karen? I'll get to you, Carol, just right afterwards.
No, thank
In
you.
terms of all these moves and stuff.
No, we're hoping to have, and Charlie will speak more to this, the renovations done probably early May. so that we can begin thinking about moving, especially if we are going to be moving Pierce. It'll be a lot of moving parts if we tend to do it all in June. So I'm hoping to do a little bit in May and then finish with the classrooms in late June and then move on to Pierce. So
It's
hopefully
probably a great
um,
idea. We'll get a better price in May to move than we will in June when everybody else and their sister is moving. Carol? Huh?
Just a quick question. What's the head count going to be at Baldwin?
Pardon?
A head count. We're also going to be using it for professional development and having people come there for, you know, different professional development, staff, teachers from different grade levels. There's all sorts of great ideas that we're looking into for there, but the head count, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, so the concept of it is to have a learning center, a professional learning center where we're able to have a library of resources and curriculum accessible, as well as spaces where we can work with small groups of teachers or, you know, administrators or rising administrators to be able to help them develop the skills they need to be successful. So we're pretty excited about being able to have a space like that, because one of the challenges in education is, of course, providing the level of support you need to become proficient or a master teacher or administrator when there's so little support systems in place to be able to help people be successful. So we're really excited about being able to have a space where we can really do some great work with staff. And it would be all staff. It's not just teachers, you know, having a program for example, substitute teachers. So when they come in, we have a place where we're going to work with them on, you know, things like classroom management skills and looking at lesson plans and how to use our technology. So when they're actually going into a classroom, we know that they have kind of the essential skills, you know, and support systems in place for them to be successful. So whether it's a substitute teacher or a person that may be interested in going into administration, or it's the custodial staff that, you know, need a refresher on some, you know, compliance related issue or how the alarm systems work or something like that, we'd actually have a dedicated space where people could get together and be able to engage in learning. So that would be the educational component of the Baldwin School. And then as far as the number of people that would, and also I want to say, there wouldn't, so some of the curriculum people that are there wouldn't be there 5 days a week, right? We would expect them to be in schools mostly, but they still have to have a place where they can do some of the work that needs to be done in preparation for going out into schools or writing evaluations or whatever, working on, you know, curriculum development and such. So they'll need to have a place to do that work, but primarily those folks would be out in the school. So there wouldn't be, you know, we wouldn't anticipate, or we'd minimize the impact of like parking and congestion in the neighborhood area, because folks would not, you know, always be there every day. There are some secretarial supports that would be there every day, but for the most part, we were trying to be sensitive, you know, to the fact that there isn't a gigantic parking lot available there, you know, to accommodate a large group of people. So
Thank you. Those I was gonna say, those sound like wonderful objectives, and parking was my concern.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you don't realize what a constraint parking is until you try to live in a particular space. But I love the fact that you're also talking about the fact that people don't have to be there all the time, because as you know, the capital subcommittee of the AC keeps on encouraging you folks to think about hoteling or hot desking. And perhaps this can be an entry or an attempt to try that.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. Selling what?
hot desking or hoteling, meaning that people are sharing.
Okay.
Are sharing desks in reflection of the fact that they don't have to be in the office all the time.
Well,
But I am concerned about the parking and the head count, and would love to know what your parking plans are for when you say you have training, because my recollection is there's only like 10 or 15 parking spaces there, and parking on the road doesn't work.
so Carol, the fortunate thing about that is there's an upper parking lot at Sewell Recreation that's entryway from Heath Street in, that I would say probably has 25 to 30 at least parking spaces. And so we would work out together with Recreation, because they don't use it particularly all the time, to be able to access that space. So I think that's something that's certainly feasible and not going to, and it has public transportation too. If people wanted to, they could take the T out to Chestnut Hill and just cross the street to get there. So especially from the high school, it's much more easy than fighting the traffic on Route 9 at times. I see some other hand. So you got your questions answered, right, Gail? Great. So I'm going to call on Suzanne first, Mariah, because you asked a question, unless it's directly related to this. No. Suzanne?
Yeah, thank you, Helen. So I'm very excited about a learning center. I think that's fabulous. We had one, the Sperber Center at Pierce. Is that kind of moving over? Will it still be called the Sperber Center over at Baldwin? No, that's just going.
We hadn't thought about that.
Okay, well, we've had it for years.
That's true.
It's either gonna die when Pierce dies, that building, or you could think about, if it's important still, to move it over. Just a
Just a
thought.
Okay.
Continuation of learning centers.
You
Yeah.
bet that.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, one other thing I wanted to add to what Susan said, and I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, Mariah, because I did say you could talk next. BASE, Brookline Adult Education, is going to the high school, back to the high school where they've been for many years. And I think that's a great spot for them. They're centralized, people can get to it, people can register, etc. Mariah.
My question is, and it's somewhat related to this, you mentioned that we're not going to talk about, you're not ready to talk about all the changes of where people are going until you talk about it with them, which makes great sense. I was just wondering when we would get that, what the timeline is for us hearing who's going where exactly.
Yeah, there's one more, I have one more space I need to clarify with a principal. And then once we have that squared away and we've confirmed that room space, then we'll meet with the staff members, so that we just want to make sure that all the parts are confirmed and locations are solidified before we meet. So I'm hoping over the next, month, perhaps when we get back from the holiday break, we would be meeting with them.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And then we would hear about it after that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just
Great.
want to make sure.
No,
I
it's
just think
great. I
it's-
just was sort of curious when we would hear the
Yep.
outcome. So that's
Yeah,
perfect.
so before
Thank
the
you.
holiday, I'll finalize the spaces, make sure I know the room numbers. Karen and I are on the same page. Certainly, senior leadership team is and the principals, except for one location we have to double back on. But if that's a go, then we'll say, okay, we've got our locations. Now we'll start meeting with staff to talk, about where they would go, show them what that space might, look like, help them to imagine that, give them some ideas about potential timelines and things like that. But I need to meet with Charlie and make sure I'm not suggesting something that he doesn't feel comfortable with also for Baldwin. So yeah, we'll get to him after the new year and get all staff on board.
So maybe by
We
the
can loop
time
back
we
with
have
you.
our next capital subcommittee, we could just have a listing of the departments and or people and where they're going to be at.
Yeah.
Okay. Sarah?
So apologies to start with, because I know this isn't essential to this conversation, but I have a very strong feeling that we need to keep the Sperber name somewhere. So can you guys remind me, where else in the system do we have that name still?
We don't. We never had it anywhere else. It was only
And
the
I agree with Suzanne. I would love to see, I mean, Bob Sperber was such an amazing person. I would love to see that.
I have no problem with it.
Yeah,
I mean, we
that
could
tradition
mandate-
of his name carrying forward in the new space with that same intent.
Love it. No problem.
Let's have a discussion about that and how to go about doing it, what we want to do. And
There's some other naming stuff. This is going totally off track a little bit, but there's
Why?
some other
Don't go
naming
naming.
questions.
Huh?
Maybe, do we park this? Can we bring this back at the end of like naming questions? Because I don't really know how naming gets.
There's a policy.
Okay, so like maybe we can put these for the next meeting to talk about both naming things. Is that okay?
There's another naming thing.
There is relating to Pierce also.
Oh.
You've been on the emails. It's okay. I'll remind you afterwards.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I saw another hand, Suzanne.
Yeah, thanks. I just wondering, Helen, are we gonna hear just a very brief update about what's being done at Baldwin? I'd love to just,
Yeah, you just led into our next item on our agenda.
okay.
And that's perfect. And I think we have the right people here to talk about it. I guess Sarah or Charlie. I don't know who's Charlie. Okay. You're so far away, Charlie.
It's the owl. I'm trying to catch the owl closer. No, we're in the same office today.
It's interesting because the owl should focus in on you when you're talking, but it doesn't seem to be doing it.
Well-
Anyways, it's okay. We can see you though.
He hasn't talked enough yet, that's why.
Oh, you think that's the case? Okay, keep going. Charlie's a man of few words. A lot of action, but few words.
So just, I have an Excel sheet that Sarah updated that I can share with you in a minute, but I just want to say that we've started work at Baldwin. And we're proceeding per the plan with the goal of finishing everything by May 1st. And that's still the plan to keep going. There were a couple of changes that were thrown our way, and I'm looking into that. And I don't want to jeopardize anything that'll delay getting it open on May, so we'll figure something out, I'm sure. Let's see here. Let me share the screen and
While you're doing that, I'd just like to make a comment that last week, I think it was Friday. Susan, Karen and myself and Sarah walked the building. There is work being done as we speak. You know, walls coming down and, you know, electrical wiring and things being put in. So it's pretty exciting that things are coming together there somewhat. I mean, it's still, I wouldn't take anybody there right now to see it as a space that they're going to be in. You know, it's a construction zone right now, but it's important. This is one of our buildings, and it's important to bring it up to date as much as possible. There won't be a huge amount done there right now because we don't have money for it, but hopefully with the time, we'll be able to do more. So, Charlie, I just wanted to give that preface.
thank you. I'm having trouble getting it up on the screen here.
Open up the Excel,
Which one?
the icon down at the bottom of the toolbar, yeah, and then select the bottom modification
This,
there.
thank you. Can everybody see that?
Not yet. I mean, the other
Um,
possibility is to send it to Betsy and she could get it up there.
All right, I'll do that.
It'll make it easy, but maybe you can just talk a little bit about it. Well,
Technically challenged here, I guess, tonight.
I understand.
So a lot of the work,
I'll send it to that.
yeah, if you could.
Yeah.
I can't type and talk at the same time. Was following the original plan that we had set out, so there's work, electrical work, plumbing work, modifying the bathrooms, painting, flooring, and a lot of miscellaneous things. We're adding heat pumps, we're adding new lighting. And I went over a plan that was presented to me by
Lynn.
Len, the former director, And it laid out where people were going. And most of it had the furniture coming from 2 Clark being relocated in those same spaces. And he had a couple of offices that he said should be, not really be floor to ceiling, but I understand there was gonna be a change to that, so we're looking into that. One of the things I'm concerned about, and I did have a meeting with the electrical contractor, the owner today, was that we still don't have the service upgraded for Baldwin. And he said it's in the engineering department inside Eversource, but he still doesn't have a date. So I asked them to push me on that. But they are running really far behind. And the fact that he doesn't have a date yet is a little concerning. But hopefully you get me an answer by Monday. Now, can you still move in on May 1st? Yes, but you wouldn't be able to use the heat pumps. And that might be a little bit of a problem. So I will get more information on that hopefully next week. That's
So
the
for
first
those
thing.
who don't know what a heat pump is, it's both the heating and air conditioning of the space.
Correct. So, going down this list, we finished the work on the ceilings. A lot of the original ceilings were falling apart and paint was peeling off, so the ceilings have been replastered. There was a request to refinish all the woodwork. We got that price today. It's about $20,000 upstairs, so that's an upcharge that I wasn't planning on. It's gonna be part of paint. Painting of the classrooms is an estimate still. We have to come up with the final colors and how we're going to be doing this. So I think we need to talk about that a little bit more. The next item is the flooring. So originally the flooring, we were gonna cover what's there, what's at a minimum amount, just clean up what was there, but I understand from Helen and Susan being there that they wanted, or at least Helen wanted the floors all sanded and polished back to the way they originally were. Now, I don't know exactly what's underneath all the floors, but I do know there's asbestos tile, and I'm concerned about the prices and the time to get this done because it will delay things. So for right now, we do have an estimate. It's $88,000 to remove all existing flooring and cover it with LVT. That'll make everything look uniform.
LVT, you have to tell people what LVT is.
This will be removing everything that isn't asbestos, correct?
Okay, but you're putting a wood plank for.
Yes. Now, if we do the alternate with the abatement and remove everything, I mean, right now it's 130 to 160, that could change. And we're looking at getting prices on what it would cost. My concern is if the glue is hot and it gets into the wood, so it's hard to get it out of the wood.
Mm.
And if you ask somebody to sand it, they're gonna look for that report. If the report isn't very specific that says there's no asbestos, they won't touch it. We had that problem at Old Lincoln. And luckily, none of the glue was asbestos, just the tile. So the contractor got the paperwork and then he proceeded to start sanding all the floors. So that could be a budget buster in some way and it could delay things. So I guess I gotta work on that with Sarah and Karen over the next week or two. But I'd say we're gonna need an answer by, say, January 1st of what we are going to be doing. And then if we are gonna do this, where's the money gonna come from? And how's that gonna work out? Oh, go ahead.
I just, if I could just add a little piece, I mean, I know both Susan and I felt it was important to try and bring back the building to its earlier glory, if we could. And if we can't, obviously we can't. What we're talking about is a space probably, I don't know, 30 by 15, would you say, Charlie? Of where those tiles are. The rest of the building is mostly wooden floors. but this one space seems to have gotten these tiles. So, I mean, we'll be flexible. We'll see what we can do. And we know we need to get in by May 1st.
Okay.
Mariah?
I guess I'm wondering if it's possible to park this conversation for now until we have a better sense of,
Absolutely. That's why
Okay.
we wanted numbers, and then we can make the decision.
okay. But which of these numbers is covering a 30 by 15 space? Is it the 88,000 to cover 450 square feet? If
Oh,
so,
no, it's 130,000 for the asbestos removal.
wait, but are we talking about 450 square feet? We're talking about paying $150,000 for 450 square feet?
No, the
flooring?
88,000 is for the wood plank floor made of LVT that would cover all of the flooring and encapsulate the tiles and make the space uniform. So the whole office space would have the same flooring covering it, because right now it's a mix. There's the front space that has this asbestos tile has been covered with a safe tile. And then the other areas, the office spaces, were used as early childhood classrooms at one point. So some of the classrooms are split, so they're half hardwood and the other half has been covered with carpeting. So in order to create a uniform space, we could either cover it all with a similar type of flooring or refinish all of the hardwood floors, which would require taking up all the carpet and all the tile that's been covering these floors and then refinishing the whole area and resanding. And that would, in total, including the abatement, fall between 130 and 160,000.
Oh, okay, that's helpful.
So I guess I'm gonna be a little bit of a grump. And I'm gonna say that I'm not, and maybe it's just me nitpicking on this idea of going back to former glory, which is the phrase you used, Helen, and I don't mean to be like a jerk about
That's
it, but
okay. I did say it.
but I do think that we thought about making this space functional, and I don't want to, and we also talked about this maybe not all coming to fruition in a year. And so to the extent we are making it functional as opposed to beyond functional, I guess I want to be careful. There's other areas we have to spend our capital dollars, and I just wouldn't want to overinvest in this area, especially given all the different priorities we have. I do want it to do all the things we need it to do, and I'm certainly like enthusiastic to do things in an order that is overall efficient in the way we spend money. But if there are things that we can hold while still being able to use the space, but also sort of making it a little bit stepwise, I'm also enthusiastic on that.
Well, I think, yeah, I agree with you, Mariah. I think we need to be very careful about the money we're spending here, and we are. I mean, I think that's really true. And I think that we need to get the estimates. You know, it's a little bit of time and effort on the part of staff, but then we make an educated decision about what to do. So,
yeah.
Okay, let's go on. Okay, Charlie, I started interrupting you. I will try and keep my mouth shut. until then.
So the next part is the HVAC and the heat pumps, as was mentioned. That equipment's been ordered. But with the change of these two offices, I have to think now, because these two offices were gonna be open at the top. So one unit was gonna be able to take care of heating and cooling for the entire room, including the office. So now with the office being built floor to ceiling, there's a question of how I'm gonna heat it and cool it. And with the equipment already ordered, I gotta look into potentially changing that, so. I will be going back to that. That number could be going up in some way. I'm not sure right now. Regarding the bathrooms, the plumber has started and he's doing the demolition, and I did meet with the owner on site. I wouldn't say he's gloom and doom, but he's, pointing out all the piping, and he says, wow, we should be, ripping this out, he's going back to try to replat the entire building, and I'm trying to hold him back. But this is what plumbers do. He wants all new. I understand, and I can appreciate, because he doesn't want me calling him back for a leak. saying that, you touch it, you own it. And the pipe is very old, 1920. So I decided that we would agree to do this in parts. So let's demo first and let's work together and we can agree where you're gonna end. And from that point on, then I can work on putting everything brand back there. So they did start the demo and we're looking into the pipes. I'm probably gonna see them next week and see where we are. But that's underway.
Okay, Charlie, do we know what kind of pipes come into this building?
Well, cast iron is the sewer and copper is the water line.
Okay,
So, regarding the construction and demo, we did start the demolition in the basement to create the new space. And, we'll be cutting a doorway from the hallway. Right now, we have to remove the wiring that's inside the wall we're tearing down, so that's moving along pretty well. And, you have 10,000 for constructing 4 walls and 2 new office spaces, Sarah?
That's an estimate, assuming you're gonna have to run power through the walls and create new,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So I would wait and say that we're gonna meet with New England School Services to get a hard price on these offices. But for the time being, we have a $10,000 placeholder. The next is working with the electrician on the wiring. Most of the lights, if not all the lights, have been taken down. He's already done a lot of the wiring, and he'll be working on cleaning things up. I think we have enough plugs and enough service, but Karen, do you know what's going on with the data over there?
As far as I know, the data is still active. I know that the network switch took a hit, but I'm sure we have something that could go in there. But the data might need to be, some of them relocated just because they're not in the right place, given the floor plan. But I think there might be almost enough data in the, data drops in the building to support. We might need a few more, but we will have to talk to IT about a new switch for the basement.
When you
But
say.
we have it.
Yes, we're not buying it, we're just giving it to IT to switch out.
Correct.
So, that's going well. So regarding the lighting, I was gonna be putting in new lighting, but I'm trying to get a price, hasn't been quite determined yet. From an energy conservation company, so they'll do the work, they pay most of it, I get rebate money, and we have to come up with a little bit of money. I'm doing the same thing up at Newbury. It'll be nice, clean, white lights, all brand new fixtures, and we'll save some money in the long run. So Cam met with AECom up there last week, so hopefully I'm getting a price in the next week or so. The rest of the items are on hold. We talked about putting in a new drop ceiling in the basement storeroom, but that was when it was potentially gonna be offices, so we're just gonna hold on that. And regarding window shades, I don't think we need to have brand new shades, but we're gonna be putting up something. And depending on where we are with the budget, in the next few months, we'll be able to figure out where we are. So the latest budget is right there in front of you. And if you recall, we were gonna use the remaining money out of the mini CIP account. That's about $350,000, and we've already encumbered $100,000 towards the Baldwin. If we remove the $50,000, we're gonna be short about $75,000. So we're gonna have to decide on priority and how we're gonna finish things off. But it's close enough that we'd be okay. So if we finish up in May, but we have to have some things done, I believe the room downstairs isn't gonna be used anyway until after July. So
Right.
we'll be able to have access to newer CIP money, mini CIP money, as we discussed to finish this off. So, would the 2 bathrooms upstairs be 100% complete? Again, it'll be based on where this plumber leads me. He gets me nervous sometimes, and he will drop $100,000 in a second. So we might only be able to finish 1 bathroom, but there'll be a bathroom upstairs and a bathroom downstairs, and we'll work on the second bathroom. Again, with the bathrooms upstairs, we'll make them both handicapped accessible, and they're required by code. So we will get it done, but I'll have a better idea of the budget, say in the next month or 2, as people get more into it, but I think we'll be okay. Nothing crazy is happening. As long as Helen doesn't walk through and change her mind on anything, we'll be okay.
I know, Charlie.
Stay away from the building until May 1st. We'll be fine and on budget. No more change orders.
So Charlie, I looked at the shades that are there. We can keep the ones that are there. So you can take that off the list, I
As
think.
long as she doesn't ask for like terrazzo flooring or anything crazy.
No, there's nice tile flooring there.
$600,000 worth of terrazzo, or I don't know. We should be okay. You're killing me, Ellen, sometimes. You do these things,
Charlie, come on.
Come on, come on.
I tried to be very cost conscious.
Didn't you just say that for Pierce when we stop building Pierce and want change orders? Go after them for that. Just say
Okay.
Oh.
Carol?
Charlie, I didn't see a cost listed for upgrading the electrical service.
It's up to the top. We can go up to the top. 74.
I see, okay. Oh, it's blank. Oh, 74,000, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. And if we didn't have the electric heat pumps, would we need to be upgrading the electrical service?
Not necessarily, but it's the original 100 amp. And the history of the building is there was Winthrop House, there was an early education program. And then we remodeled it at some point. We had some beep over there. So the electrical is safe, it works, but it's all sort of mishmashed. The air conditioning that was there before was just plugging in window air conditioners, which we could go back to again, but it's not that great. I think just now and going for the future, 100 amps in a building like that is way too small anyway. And if
So what are you
and
gonna
I don't know-
upgrade it to?
Yeah, there'll be a 200 amp service.
Okay,
I mean, I can't predict what we're gonna be doing in the future there, but I can probably estimate that you're gonna need the power with, in the next 10 to 15 or 20 years. So it'll be a good investment.
and for those offices that you're building, that you want to have them go up to the ceiling, couldn't you put in a drop ceiling and not have the walls going up all the way? And with that, with the HVAC?
Well, I could, the cost, the room is still gonna be separated, so there wouldn't be any, like the air conditioning from the single heat pump that would be in the room wouldn't be getting into the room. I could do something with the heat based on using the radiator, but I wouldn't be able to heat it as well in the wintertime. So what I was thinking of is doing something with a smaller split system. In other words, 2 heat pumps in that space, 1 for the office, and then 1 for the rest of the room. So instead of having 1 3-ton unit, I have a 1-ton and a 2-ton unit.
Mhm.
That's what I gotta look at, is if we can change the order.
And all these prices are net of your rebates?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
Great, okay. Thank you. Suzanne?
Yeah, just, I think to keep in mind is we will probably use the building year round. I would guess there'd be some professional learning going on in the summer, and I would imagine that the curriculum people are year-round people, not 10 months. I'm not sure about that. No, that's not true, Susan.
No.
So they're 10 months, people, there won't be people using it in the summer?
Yeah, no, it's not that there wouldn't be any use of it, but the curriculum coordinators are generally speaking, like 193, not 180 not 183 and not year round. And, you know, one of the things that we had talked about when we were, you know, kind of putting forward this plan was that some of the money would come out of this CIP cycle and some out of the next. So though we would need to move, we'll say upstairs into Baldwin, as Charlie said, downstairs will likely not be used the first summer. And so it gives us the opportunity to use CIP money to do some of the work on the lower level using the next round of CIP money, because we did put into our request for CIP additional money to complete this work.
Okay.
Mariah?
Thank you. I'm assuming the answer is no, but I just want to confirm that none of these costs can go into any of the other CIP buckets of money, like energy efficiency or et cetera.
Well, I didn't get it budgeted for that this year. I requested it, but that wasn't
I mean,
funded.
I just mentioned one, but like any of the other, there's no other.
Well, we could, because we are modifying the bathrooms, we could use some ADA money to help out a little bit. But it's,
I think it would be great if we could, given the, if you have funds that you can divert to this, that way we're not waiting until, you know, just like you can take advantage of all the efficiencies of having everyone in at the same time.
no,
That'd be
I
great.
understand.
Charlie and Sarah are very good at doing that and making sure that we get the best bang for our buck for.
No, I'm just, because Charlie said we had the gap of about 65,000.
Yeah,
I was just
I heard.
wondering if, right, there was a way. And then I didn't see it here, and I can't remember where it got landed, or maybe I missed it. What happened with the elevator conversation? So is the elevator not being touched in the middle of this, but it works? Or
I
what?
applied for I would have been applying for a grant,
Mhm.
and it looked hopeful, and getting it done by, obviously, before people got in. The problem is, the way the grant's written, we would have to have the thing 100% completed and billed by June 30th. And there's no way we could meet that timeline. Everybody I asked, it's just impossible. So we could have gotten the grant, but it would have been a waste. So we have to look at something else.
Is the grant cyclical? Will we be able to apply in the future?
We could, but we'll have the same problem. I mean, we have to literally put the order in on July 1st, anticipating, hoping that we get the grant. We're not told that we get the grant until, say, December.
Oh,
And I don't want to pull the trigger and not get the money and we'll be stuck with it. But then if I do pull a trigger, I can't get everything done in 6 months. It's impossible. So
is the elevator now functional? I can't remember what the status is of the elevator.
there's no elevator in the Baldwin School.
Yes.
Well, there's no elevator. So
No.
how do people,
There's two entrances that are accessible, one for the top floor, one for the bottom floor.
but how do people, let's say in bad weather, who need to get from one floor to the other, who are doing professional development, do that?
All the professional developments on one floor.
But say I work upstairs and I need to get downstairs to do to give the professional development. How do I get there?
Other than going around, I guess there wouldn't be a way unless we were able to get an elevator or some other kind of
Is that ADA compliant to have to exit the building and re-enter?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
At this point, I mean, we will be working on this. But, you know, we need the building to get up and running, and we obviously haven't triggered ADA because we're not spending, you know, the however much it is that starts to trigger that in the renovations of the building. It's not to say we shouldn't do it, Mariah, and we will, but I think we need to tackle what we can get done.
But what's our process to get there if we're not doing the grant and we can't, if the grant is sort of a chicken and an egg impossible? I mean, do we just have to budget for the elevator and then hope the grant comes in?
I think that we could do that for the following year's CIP.
Susan, what do you think about that?
Yeah. So two things I was thinking is that as we're looking at the whole picture, you know, part of this is what are we getting in the CIP that we requested for next year?
Mhm.
You know, because if we get that and some of these numbers are favorable, then because originally when we were talking about this, we were going to have the elevator through the grant, right? So
Right.
we thought that was taken care of.
Exactly.
So it could be that the money for the CIP that we had set aside for Baldwin, if we get the money for it, now we can use some of those resources to address the elevator issue. So I think there might be a couple of different ways that we can handle it. I don't disagree with what you're saying. But as Helen said, you know, the original plan, you know, we had to make some choices, and the elevator piece didn't work out for us. So we do have to address that. We had also talked about the need for additional resources to do like the windows and other components that we didn't have the money for also. So this is, I would argue, stage one. Stage two will have to, is the money that we get in FY25 from CIP, and we'll do as much as we can there. And then as we're planning for maybe the third round of Baldwin, if we're not able to get the elevator and the windows and all of that done that we had previously hoped for, then we'd have to have another round of CIP the following year.
Can I just
So-
ask one follow-up on that? Charlie, I think I remember that Baldwin was in your elevator program, isn't it? Or did it get moved?
No, the elevator program I have now is just to renovate existing elevators, not to install them. I usually put in a separate line for that.
Oh,
Years
okay.
ago, like 100 years ago.
Got it. Okay.
Just to let you know, there's another site that I'd like to put in a lift. And I was thinking combining these two projects as one and hiring one consultant to do the spec and hiring one company, a GC, do both.
Where's the other site?
The high school, going from the 3rd floor to the 4th floor.
I thought we didn't do that?
No, it didn't get done. The temporary one that was being rented by Skanska was removed. And there was the discussion about putting another one in the same location, but it never did get done.
This
And
is
we
for
can still
access
do
to
that.
SWS?
Yeah. Now, we could still do this, but personally, I don't want to do that. I don't like a child riding up the staircase on a chair, and if the child is actually really physically disabled, they'd have to be put into the chair. And I'm just not comfortable with that, so I looked at the plans. And I think we could put in a lift. We had a meeting with Hal about a week or two ago. There's a location where there's one room over another room, a small storage area and an office, where we could put this lift in. It could go from one floor to another, very similar to Baldwin. And I think it would be simple to do. Now, I say that, but you know, we put out a bid and it'll turn into $1 million, but I'd like to get that investigated a little bit further and combine it with Baldwin. So that's my plan. I gotta figure out where we're gonna get more money to do that, but I'm working on it.
Would both of them be eligible for the grant?
They could be, but again, I have to get it done within 6 months. I don't think I can do that.
So it's
Well, but you-
basically
well,
knowing
that's
we have
the money.
money up front to
Yeah.
cover it
Right, I'd have to have the
Buying
money.
and getting it done and getting the money.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, we could start, ask for the grant money. If we do get the grant money, then we'd have an extra, pile of money that we'd have a surplus. But if we didn't get it, I need the money somewhere because I can't sign a contract without it ahead of time.
Well, that may be a way to go about doing it, Mariah and Charlie, to think about it that way.
Yeah.
Sarah?
We started down this conversation a little bit when we were talking about getting from one floor to the other, but I was just wondering if there really is, and I understand that we're going to do initial phase and then we'll go further later, but from memory, I believe that outside of Baldwin, we have some real steep pitches on the parking spots. And then also, doesn't Upper Sewell, in order to connect to the Baldwin School, do you have to walk across the field as well if you park?
No,
at
well,
Upper
you
Sewell?
could, but that's not the way to go. You would
Oh, you
go
have
out
a
to,
path?
you'd go out to Heath Street, take the sidewalk across the street and go down and then across.
Oh, okay. So
That
it's a
would
little
be
bit, so,
the way-
so there would be some significant parking near the building for people that need that. And then that like little walk would be for everybody else.
Correct.
And there isn't
Right.
anything additional that needs to be done to connect to the Upper Sewell, like in terms of the staircase or anything. Okay. And then, so what about the outside accessibility of getting to either those doors? Is there a steep pitch on the driveway?
So,
I think it is relatively steep on that sidewalk,
Yeah.
right, Charlie? It is, right?
um,
I mean, it's not impassable, but if you're in a wheelchair or have other mobility issues, it is relatively steep.
It is. Usually most people, if they were going to get in the building, would park their car at the lower level, and get in that way, or park their car at the upper level, and get it that way on the other side of the building. So if you were physically in the building, yes, then you'd be going down the sidewalk, down the driveway and then around. But that's the grade. We could look at it, trying to make it a little bit better. But there's not really much I can do to get from the street to that back door because of the grade.
So the lift is essential, like that's not,
It'd be
we
nice
have
to
to
have.
figure out a way to do that.
It would be nice. And it's
Carol,
been discussed before, so.
Yeah. So I think get the pricing is the first step, right? We need to know what that is. We need to get our CIP grant for FY25. And with those two data points, we can figure out the way forward.
Carol,
So 467,000 is phase one. And if you're talking about getting CIP money in subsequent years, I think it's really important to know what the total cost of this project is as you're envisioning it before you start spending money, or at least before you start thinking that we can get this later. We're going to want to know what the total is and exactly what you're going to want to do for a multi-stage project.
I
And
think, yeah, I think we had an estimate, Carol. We didn't account for the elevator because we were thinking we were going to get grant money. So
I don't think it matters where the source
Yeah.
of funds is. It's important to know first what it's going to cost, and then you can
Sure.
solve the issue of where the funds are coming from. Personally, before this comes to the capital committee of the AC, I'd like to see that. And I think that before you commit, well, you've already committed to spending money, but I think it's important for your committee to be able to say, even if we never got any more funding, we're going to make this work for us for the next 5 years. And if you're counting on getting more funding in order to make it work, you need to be upfront about that.
I hear you, Carol. I hear you, but I think what we're doing now, the amounts of money, the 465,000, will allow us to move in and use the building. Will the windows be up-to-date windows? No, they're 1930 windows. The roof is fine. It's not leaking. The heating system is a steam heat. All those things, have to do with an old building. We can live with it for now. Charlie's found a way to do the heating and ventilation that will be more, will be a better system at least and more sustainable. And I think that we will, we'll need to make the argument certainly of what needs to be done in this building, but I think we have to use it. So it's not, it's more, this we have to do. And then after that, we'll figure out what we can do.
But am I correct in that at a minimum, it's going to be 100,000 for a new elevator? Is that what I was hearing Charlie say?
Yeah, it's about 100,000 when I was
So
penciling it in.
really to make this usable at a minimum, it's going to be $570,000. And the question is, where are you getting the extra 175,000 at the moment? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, that's a fair statement.
Okay.
We're also saving $1 million a year from not renting Clark.
Right.
Okay, Mariah?
So, just to continue down the elevator path.
I think,
Sorry, but this is the first I heard that we don't have an elevator to the fourth floor.
I thought, yeah,
Yeah, so,
No, we do have an elevator that goes to the fourth floor. And
okay,
It had some problems, if you
Right.
recall, having a massive battle with the elevator company and Skanska. And the temporary one, the rented one, was put in because we couldn't guarantee that that elevator was gonna keep working. If you can get to the third floor, there are other elevators you get to the third floor. That's the only elevator that actually goes up to the fourth floor. So this temporary chair was put in from the third to the fourth floor on the staircase in front. There was always a concern that if this elevator again failed in the future, and we had a situation where it's gonna take a very long amount of time, for whatever reason, no one that was handicapped would be able to get up to the program. So out of the high school funds, there was a discussion, and it's been listed to put in that chair again, but make it permanent. We wouldn't be renting it anymore.
so wait,
Wow.
that's in the plan now? I guess I'm concerned that we're in a situation back where we were, where students who are in SWS who have mobility challenges can't get there without crawling up the stairs, if that's possible for them physically.
Well, there is an elevator and it does work. This is
Okay.
sort of belts and suspenders looking into the future.
But is the actual elevator now still questionable? Like there's concern that it will have outages, or has that been resolved?
It's been resolved. It's been
Okay.
working fine for quite a while.
Okay, so this is just the backup, but it's not an actively used backup right now. The chair we're talking about would be a backup.
Yeah,
Okay. But are you talking about building a second elevator? That's not just a chair. This would be the second elevator from the third to the fourth floor as a backup for people who can't use the chair, and because it's more secure than the chair.
exactly.
Okay. And is that one also like 100,000?
Yeah, it's actually not an elevator technically. It's called a Lula.
Okay.
Low useful activity lift. It looks, from your point of view, it's gonna look like an elevator to everybody, but it really isn't by the state code a true elevator, although they do inspect it. It's like a more similar slimmed down elevator that gets used, as mentioned, not as much. So,
But it's still large enough to accommodate people who have larger mobility devices and, their caregivers if they need someone in the elevator with them and such?
yes,
Okay. Well, I
Um,
definitely I'm enthused that we get these on our tracker of, if they're not already, which I don't think they are, of things that need to get dealt with on the CIP, because these sound like important things to ensure access to the community, sort of uninterrupted access of the community to where they need to be.
okay. Thank you, Mariah, and I think Charlie's obviously on it, and I think we've talked about, this enough that this will hopefully be something that we can accomplish in the next year, is the way I'm hearing it. All right, anything else about Baldwin School? Nothing? Okay, let's move on to the CIP grant process. I don't know, Susan, are you the one who's going to be talking about this? Or do you know anything more? No, we can't hear you.
Sorry, I muted myself to
don't leave us.
sneeze.
Hold on one second. Carol, don't leave us because you may be adding to this conversation.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't really sure what next steps were on our journey to getting this, approved through the town, since this is my first year in this district. We submitted everything. I think we're all set, but I wasn't sure if maybe Charlie could provide us with, maybe an update if he was aware, or how I go about learning when and if what we had submitted for mini grants was approved. So I'm not sure if there's next steps, or I had heard that sometime in January we might hear And I didn't know if there was any more that needed to be done in order to usher that forward. So I don't know if Charlie, if
I
you
think
have-
I could give a little crack at this unless Helen, you want to. I don't know if it's a Charlie question, but
Well,
yeah.
probably a Melissa thing to check in on. And you had sent that note earlier to Melissa, and I think that's where Melissa is your source for understanding timeline and if she's going to give you advance info.
Okay, so there's nothing more, it's still sitting there. I want to be able to advocate and answer questions, and I met with Melissa earlier, right after we had moved them forward, and all of our items are in OpenGov. So as far as I know, I've done everything. I just don't want to miss an opportunity to make sure that, you know, people have clarity around how essential, you know, what our proposal is and how essential it is for us to be able to you know, be in a better place next year. You know, we have the Lincoln, we have, you know, some work that needs to be done in some of the buildings that's kind of safety related. And I just want to make sure that people are clear that we're not asking for something that isn't timely or that we feel is really important. Baldwin being a piece of that as well. The electrical piece for Heath, we can't expand any of our air conditioning in that school until the electrical system's upgraded there as well. And so I just, you know, want to be able to make sure that we're on top of the process there.
so I see Charlie or Sarah's hand up. I'm not sure who. I assume it's Charlie.
I guess we have two hands here, huh?
Yeah.
Since mentioning the Heath School, so I did get an electrical engineer over to the site, and I don't want to scare anybody or give them shock, but I asked them what it would cost to upgrade the service, and I had budgeted $275,000. He came back with a number close to $650,000.
Wow.
Outrageous. He also said, count on at least 18 months. Could be more.
Holy moly.
I know. The engineers from GDD who designed the Driscoll School, and he's designing the Pierce School as we speak, so I'm pretty sure, pretty confident that's the number.
And why is it so expensive?
It's just, what we're required to do is actually we gotta build a new room down in the boiler room to house all this equipment. They're gonna be putting a pad mount transformer outside. We're gonna be abandoning the vault. It's like inside the boiler room. It's just a lot of work. And
Can we
there's
get a second opinion on this?
Yes.
well, there's also an assumption from what the charge is for Eversource, and I don't have it in front of me, but you can't negotiate with Eversource, that's the number. And that number is always high. Ridiculously high, but that's what we do. It's the same with the gas company, and gas service. So I do have an alternate though. This is good news, bad news, good news, okay? So I asked the engineer if we just added 20 more heat pumps, which is about the number of rooms that are left. What do you think? And he came back with the same opinion. There's not enough power in the back part of the building, but he did have the electrical bills, and he did actually design the upgraded system. There's a new electric room that was done there for the back part of the B wing, and GGD was the MEP on that project. So he had the actual plans. And what he was able to tell me was, if you ran from the existing service to the back part of the building with another panel, you could get away with 20 more heat pumps, but that would be it. You'd be at your maximum limit for the entire building. And I said, what would be the cost? They estimated at about $150,000. So his price, the original price of $600,000 is upgrading the service, so you have service in the future, plus you could electrify the entire building and decarbonize it. And you have the ability to do that. The second alternative
Have the money.
yeah, a lot of money. The second alternative gets us a little bit better as far as being fossil free, but we never will be over there. It's like cherry picking certain areas to be heated electrically and obviously cooled. And we could do that route as well. Now, with the 275 in the mini CIP that's there now, we could potentially do the air conditioning and this upgrade to the service, but this, it's sort of an internal upgrade and get away with it that way. So there has to be another discussion about sustainability. And it's not ready for prime time yet, but the town administrator is going to be making announcements on that, and we're going to be coming up with some kind of a policy for the town.
Oh.
And it involves electrifying all the buildings. It's a huge number, I can tell you that. And Heath is on it, but I don't know when it could get done. And based on what happened at Heath and also at the main library, I can tell you that a lot of the buildings are gonna need their services upgraded. And it's gonna be cost in the, $500,000 to $1 million range to do this kind of work before we even electrify the building. So I sort of need direction about, do we do a short-term thing where we do this hybrid thing, where we do some electric and still use gas, or do you want to go all electric? And going all electric with an existing building is sometimes difficult to impossible because the building was never designed for it. And we don't have the insulation, we don't have the setup for it, we don't have the equipment for it. So there's a lot more to come on that, and we don't have to make a decision tonight on anything. But I just wanted to let you know what I had gotten over the last month or so for Heath.
Charlie, I've just finished after 16 months upgrading the service to my home. And what I was told by the electricians is that the supplies are being limited and the cost is jacked up because of the grid is not having the ability to service all these electrified buildings. And that's why, the utilities are trying to discourage us doing things like this. So I would encourage you to put in the 20 heat pumps and put off electrifying this existing building till the next time you're totally redoing the building. And you can deal with things like upgrading the insulation and the envelope and everything else. But if you need 20 heat pumps, I would encourage you to do the short-term solution.
Thank you. Mariah?
So I don't know anything about this, but what Carol said sounds right to me. But my question is, when you say like the 20 heat pumps will sort of max out the capacity, does that mean that like breakers are going to flip? I don't know what that means sort of in terms of like,
No,
can they not add any more compute? You know what I mean? Like, what does that mean in terms of the day-to-day?
You'd be okay. The back part of the wing would have a bigger panel down there. If you decided, if there was some decision to put an addition on that building of some square footage, I don't know what that would be, 1,000 square feet, you wouldn't be able to do it.
I see.
Because there's not enough big enough service to do that for that addition. And I'm talking like only 1,000 square feet. You will not have enough power to add anything really potential to
We'll still
this.
use the outlets we have sort of like at their intended capacity and such.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
So getting back to the CIP, either Charlie or Carol, do you have a sense of the timeline of when we will know what is being approved? Where is that at? What time, when do we usually find out?
You don't usually find out until end of March, April. Melissa is the first one that puts things through and gives a proposed budget to the AC. And then it takes February, March, sometimes part of April, for the AC to work through the budgets.
Right, but by February,
puts
we'll
stuff-
know more or less what she's recommending. Am I hearing that correct?
I think you'll know, the beginning of January isn't, I
Okay.
think is when
I
she
think it's like
usually puts the
early
budget
to
up.
mid-January, she
Yeah.
will post it.
Yeah, and then of course it goes through the advisory committee and your subcommittee to talk about it and figure out where the monies are gonna go. Do we have any sense of how much free cash there is this year that we're using for the CIP, the total?
I don't know. I don't know what it is. I haven't heard yet.
I believe I heard from the select board that it was a huge amount of free cash again, but I could be misremembering.
Well, we've hovered around 13, 14 million every year.
I do have a meeting with the sixth floor to go over my operating budget for next fiscal year. It's on my notes. That's one of the first things I'm gonna ask Melissa is, when are you gonna come up with the CIP? Because it affects me for planning in the summer.
Absolutely.
Late year was very, very late last year because they couldn't certify the free cash. We're not gonna have that trouble this year, but even if she could give me some kind of a hint, that would be great. And historically, it came out in December, a very rough draft, but I haven't heard anything yet. So,
Okay.
It did used to come out in December, and then last year it didn't come out in December. And she said, no, I've always produced it in January, mid-January, but I remember we used to see something in December, so.
you always got it before the holidays, so you could have something to, chew on and come back fighting in January for more money. So,
All right,
Anyway.
well, I think we've gone as far as we can with this one, but sometime in January, we probably will hear at least the first round.
Can I ask a favor, Helen?
Yes,
Just because I've got to go pick up Rita in like 2 minutes, is there any
Yes.
chance we can just swap number 6 and number 5 just to hear about the naming thing, or can we just say we're gonna put the naming thing on the next agenda to talk about it?
yeah,
then?
I don't think we're going to discuss it now. I think we should put it on the next agenda.
Okay.
Let's have a discussion, you and I, a little bit too,
Sounds
about
good.
that.
Yep.
And I'll bring we'll get the, what's it called? Our policy out there too, so that everybody can see it. I think this next item is very quick, has to do with leases and classroom expansion funds.
Yeah, so we just wanted to let everybody know that we did renew the lease for Beacon and Putteram. And that just a reminder that when we put in our CIP request, we had included that as part of our request. So we're on track with that. We did have one question though. As we're looking at projecting revenue for both this year and next year, Karen brought to my attention that there was a change in the way that we are charging for the extended day in the music school. That's going to result in them.
Not necessarily the music school, but I can't remember the music school details. I don't think they were changed, but the extended days, yes.
We
Okay.
dropped the music school down from $12.50 an hour to $5 an hour.
Is that what it
Brookline
was?
Music School. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is significant. But when I did the quick calculations on the extended days, it's almost double or triple the amount of last year. I mean, have we talked to people about this? Yes, when you do the calculations by hour. I can share
We
the
didn't, hold
spreadsheet
on a
that I
second,
did.
we aren't charging them by hour, we're charging them by student. That was they have their DESI, that was what we voted. Maybe you and
Okay.
I and Susan should reconnect on that
But
because,
the sheet that Betsy shared with me today showed charging by hour.
no,
So, okay, so it's by student.
Yeah.
Okay, okay,
Why don't
Good
we
to
all
know.
four get together and just go over that whole list?
thank
That
you.
would be helpful.
yep,
Yeah.
that'd be
Let's do
good.
that, because
Since
there's
Mary and I weren't
history,
part of it.
there's all sorts of things that are important to take into account there. Okay.
Excellent. So we can schedule a separate meeting for that.
Okay, so that's it for that. There is one piece of new business that I had from a member of the public, actually Carla Benka, who emailed me about disposal of surplus stuff from the Driscoll School, and apparently there were a lot of things that might have been able to be reused. Now, I know we reused some of the stuff there. I don't know, Karen, if you have some thoughts about that?
We reused, we sent a lot of stuff both to Newbury and Old Lincoln to be reused for the Driscoll School. there was a lot of really old furniture that we just, it didn't have a use, and yes, you saw it going out. There was a lot of stuff that just had no use anywhere. We sent as much useful stuff as we could, and we did have some stuff recycled. We did give away. We didn't give away as much as I thought we could have. We just didn't generate the interest that we thought we would, but we really did try to distribute as much as we could around the buildings. We gave some stuff to the high school, to Lawrence School. So we did as much as we could. I know people saw dumpsters going out, but it was really mostly just tired.
And Karen was in charge of this, for
furniture.
those who don't know. She was in charge of emptying the building, which she had to do quite quickly when the kids got out, and so that the contractor could start their work, so we don't get charged, for a delay of whatever. So there were a number of factors being worked in there. So I just wanted to make sure that people were aware of that. Carla, I certainly take your point to heart, and I can tell you that at least at the Baker School, when we redid the auditorium there, we managed, with the help of Nancy Ray Gore, to get those seats recycled, and so we didn't pay for disposal, and somebody's using them or selling them. We're not sure. Somebody had their hand up, Mariah, but she just left. Maybe she was just going to tell us she had to go. Yes, Carol.
I don't know if this is the appropriate venue, but since you're renewing your leases at Temple Emeth and Temple Ojai Shalom, I'm just wondering if there's been a rethinking or some sort of hardening of the security protocols given the environment at the moment.
I can't speak to that. Karen or Susan?
I believe that they've been doing their own security and have done some changes in the codes and things around the building for people to get in, and have put in a new system for entry actually at Hardingham for teachers to use new cards and things. So I know that they have been, both locations have been beefing up their security, if you want to put it that way. Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, there's also some police presence that has been around those buildings lately, much more so than in the past. Is there any other new business or old business? I think I can give everybody oh, Carla, you have your hand up. I'll entertain it because we do have a few minutes. Could you, Bessie, could you move Carla over?
Coming over now.
Carla, you have to unmute. There you go.
Thanks very much, Helen. I realized that my email to you was pretty short notice, like 6 hours.
You're lucky I read it.
So Karen, what I was thinking of is not necessarily whether other schools in our immediate system could use that equipment, but what are the possibilities of going beyond Brookline? There seem to be so many ways that individuals and organizations can let one another know that they have an extra X, Y, or Z, and just make it available for free. Not necessary to sell it, but mostly to keep it out of landfill if there's any possibility of doing that. And as I said in the email to Helen, maybe SWAC or the recycling coordinator for the town or mothers up front could be helpful in this regard, because it is going to be an ongoing issue. Just because we don't need stuff doesn't mean that other communities don't need it either. Thank you.
We did, we were in touch with SWAC, just so you know, and they did give me the name of a couple of companies that do help with that. The problem is the lead time to engage with them is about 6 weeks, and then they come out and do an assessment, and we just didn't have the time. So I did offer it up to some private schools in the area. We did put it out to some of our consortiums that we deal with, and we did get a few responses from outside. It just wasn't, the timing was just, I guess I just didn't plan well enough to think that it would take that much time to engage that kind of a sort of a service. So I will be thinking about those things as we do move Pierce
Right.
in, and sort of take care
I
of
think
that.
you should
Some
get
of their-
Carla to help you with that.
I'd be more than happy to, and maybe even have a meeting with various groups in town to get their suggestions. I mean, there's got to be a way. I
Well,
hate
you can figure it out for the
Yeah.
Pierce School and there'll be a bigger lead time there.
Right.
Probably less stuff, but, and don't look at the library shelves. We're going to be using those. But, you know, it's a real problem because we don't have the staff to be able to do this, to spend the time. They are so overworked right now that there just isn't the person power.
But that's why I suggested going beyond the school.
Well, she did. She did.
staff
though, she
to,
said.
to talk to give others in the town. And maybe once we get our sustainability director on board, this will be another project.
Absolutely. I could see that as part of that department. You know,
Right.
once we're done, do whatever you want with it. I don't know if we were able to, Charlie or Sarah, were we able to recycle the slate and the any of the marble, or that was part, the contractor got to keep it?
We got chunks of the slate. The roofer was up there. I'm not sure about the marble. And then we got a lot of building components.
So you were able to keep, so the things that were of value, we certainly kept, you know,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
no doubt about that.
Right, yeah, Charlie was way ahead of me on this. When I emailed him, he said, done it, it's done. We grabbed everything we need. So,
But I think, you know, we'll call on you next time. Pierce is coming up, hopefully
right,
in June, so.
We were able to reuse a lot of the kitchen equipment in other locations. We did recycle the entire serving line to one of the buildings and a lot of the refrigerators and freezers. So some of the bigger equipment did move and was reused, if that's, you know.
thank you.
Okay, anybody else? All right, I think we still have a half hour back on your time. One of the things that we're discussing is possibly to move the time of this. Obviously, Mariah had to leave to pick up her daughter. Sarah had some childcare issues too. I'm certainly amenable to having this meeting at an earlier time, which I imagine most of the staff would be happy with too. So we'll be sending out to the committee a poll to see what times work, what days work, and go from there, if that sounds okay. And we'll ask you too, Charlie, so we make sure that you and Sarah can make it because you're invaluable here. Okay. Thank you all for coming today. I think this was a great meeting and we have a lot of stuff to follow up on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
evening.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
You too.